Imagine this. It's 2 a.m., your room is dark, and your phone screen is the only light. You promised yourself you'd sleep early, you promised you'd stop scrolling, but your thumb has other plans. One more reel, one more video, one more hit of "I'll change tomorrow." Your eyes burn, your heart sinks, and deep down you whisper, "What is wrong with me?" Now picture a tiny apartment in Tokyo. Same problem, same late night glow, same heavy guilt. But here's something different happens. Instead of declaring war on their bad habits, people quietly, gently, almost invisibly shrink them. Not with explosive motivation, not with dramatic deadlines, but with a quiet Japanese method called Kaizen, a strategy so small and subtle it slips under the radar of your excuses and breaks your bad habits from the inside. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, goes the old saying. Japan asks a deeper question. What if the step is so small your fear doesn't even wake up? What if the step is only 30 seconds, one page, one push-up, one breath? What if that tiny step, repeated calmly every day, can do what willpower, guilt, and self-hate could never do for you? Right now, think of the one habit that's slowly poisoning your life. Maybe it's mindless scrolling. Maybe it's junk food. Maybe it's procrastinating until your chest feels tight. Hold it in your mind. Feel the weight of it. Now imagine that instead of trying to destroy it overnight, you began to quietly outgrow it, grain of sand by grain of sand. The way Japan rebuilt itself after disaster patiently, precisely, one modest improvement at a time. In post-war Japan, factories were broken, money was scarce, and morale was low. They couldn't afford big revolutions, so they crafted something better, a culture of continuous, tiny improvements. Workers were encouraged to make small suggestions, shift a tool by a few centimeters, label a box more clearly, move a trash can closer. Each change looked meaningless. Together, they transformed entire industries and made Japan a symbol of quality. That philosophy got a name, Kaizen. Kai means change. Zen means good. Not violent, ego-driven, dramatic change, but gentle, persistent, good change. Change so small it doesn't scare you. Change so kind it feels like self-respect, not self-punishment. And that same quiet power that helped rebuild an entire nation can also rebuild the private nation of your daily habits. There's a Japanese proverb, fall 7 times, stand up 8. Most people read that and think it means never give up, but look more closely. It doesn't say fall once and then make a huge comeback. It says you'll fall again and again. Standing up is not some grand victory, it's just what you do next. That is Kaizen, small, repeated standing up, without drama, without noise, without self-hate. Let me tell you about Haru, a university student in Osaka. Haru's grades were okay, but not great. The real problem wasn't intelligence, it was late-night gaming. Every night he told himself, "Tonight I stop. From now on, I will be disciplined." And every night at 11 p.m., a friend would send a message, "One game?" Suddenly, it was 3 a.m. again, his eyes dry, his heart heavy, his promise broken. One day, an older classmate noticed Haru's red eyes and slumped shoulders. Instead of lecturing him, he asked, "Can you play 1 minute less tonight?" Haru laughed. "1 minute? What difference does that make?" The classmate replied quietly, "Your brain hates big change, but it's too lazy to fight small change." Haru was skeptical, but he agreed. That night, he set an alarm for 2:59 a.m. Instead of quitting at 3, he quit at 2:59, 1 minute reclaimed. For a week, Haru cut just 1 minute each night. It didn't feel like quitting gaming. It didn't feel like a dramatic lifestyle change. It felt ridiculous, almost like a joke. But here's what happened. After a few days, his mind started accepting this new ending time as normal. No inner war, no big guilt. Slowly, he stretched it to 5 minutes, then 10, then 30. Within a month, he was closing the game at 1:30 instead of 3. Here's the strange secret. His identity started to shift before the habit fully did. He began to see himself as someone who had a limit, someone who could stop. That tiny sliver of self-respect became powerful. A month later, he decided that on weekdays, he'd stop at midnight. Was it perfect? No. Did he still slip sometimes? Yes, but the chaos of all or nothing was gone. He was learning the art of a little better today. Ask yourself, how many times have you tried to cut a bad habit once and for all, only to get crushed by your own expectations? From Monday, I'll never eat sugar again. From next month, I'll work out every day for an hour. From tomorrow, I'll study 4 hours a night. And when you inevitably fail, you don't just feel disappointed, you feel defective. You think the problem is you. What if the problem was the size of your first step? Kaizen whispers, if big change keeps breaking you, make it smaller. If it still breaks you, make it smaller again. Instead of asking, how can I change everything overnight? Ask, what is the tiniest, least intimidating step I can take toward better? Not the step your ego wants, not the step Instagram would admire, but the step you can actually do today without trembling. There's another story, this time from Tokyo. Aya was a young woman who dreamed of writing a novel. Every new year, she would buy a beautiful notebook, write my novel on the first page, and promise herself that this year she would finally do it. By February, the notebook would be buried under receipts and unpaid bills, and Aya would be left with the bitter taste of another broken dream. One evening, after a long day at work, she confessed to her grandfather, I think I'm just lazy. I can't commit. The old man smiled and poured tea slowly, carefully, the way he had done for decades. You don't fail because you're lazy, he said. You fail because you ask your tired brain for a mountain when you have strength for a pebble. Then he set a challenge. Write 1 sentence a day, only one. If you write more, that's extra. But 1 sentence is success. Aya rolled her eyes at first. 1 sentence? That felt like cheating. It felt too easy to count, but she agreed. The next night, exhausted, she sat down and wrote. The rain hit the city like it had a secret to tell. That was it, 1 sentence. She closed her notebook. She felt a strange thing, not guilt, but victory. The next night, she wrote another. Some nights she wrote only that 1 sentence. Other nights, once she had started, she wrote a paragraph, then a page. Weeks turned into months. 1 sentence became a ritual, as natural as brushing her teeth. Aya no longer asked, do I feel like writing tonight? The question died. Her brain had accepted. At night, we write at least 1 sentence. A year later, she held a messy, imperfect, beautiful first draft of her novel. Not born from heroic sprints of inspiration, but from tiny, almost invisible daily steps. This is Kaizen in its purest form. Lower the bar until your resistance relaxes. Then repeat and repeat. We love the fantasy of radical transformation, the before and after montage, the overnight success, but the reality is quieter. As someone once said, people do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures. So how can you use Kaizen to crush your own bad habits? Let's make it real. First, you need brutal honesty. Take that habit you thought of earlier. Maybe it's doom scrolling, junk food, vaping, procrastination, staying in toxic chats, or even negative self-talk. Don't dress it up. Name it clearly. Don't call it just relaxing if it's actually numbing my feelings. Don't call it just 1 snack if it's really eating instead of feeling lonely. Now ask a powerful but gentle question. What is the smallest possible version of this habit I can change today? Not next week, not after exams, not after you move, not when life calms down. Today, if you scroll till 2 a.m., can you stop at 1:55? If you drink 3 sodas a day, can you drink 2.5? If you smoke 10 cigarettes, can you smoke 9? These changes look insulting to your ego, but they're gold for your brain. Your brain, like any old, stubborn creature, hates sudden shock. That's why cold turkey methods feel like war. Your old self and your new self clawing at each other. Kaizen sneaks around this war. It speaks in whispers instead of shouts. Don't worry, it tells your brain. We're not changing everything. Just this 1 minute, just this one sip, just this one click. Before your resistance notices, your life starts bending in a new direction. There was a salaryman named Ken in Nagoya who had been overweight for years. Every January, he joined a different gym, full of enthusiasm and shame. He would go hard for a week, then vanish for 11 months. One day, a trainer finally told him, "You're not allowed to work out here more than 5 minutes a day." Ken thought it was a joke. 5 minutes? That's not exercise. But the trainer insisted, your first habit is not fitness. Your first habit is showing up. So Ken came to the gym, changed into workout clothes, walked on the treadmill for 5 minutes, and went home. The whole routine, including travel, took more time than the workout itself. It felt absurd, but it was sustainable. There was no dread, no, I need to psych myself up, no huge time commitment. Within a month, gym time was automatic. Only then did the trainer say, now let's do 10 minutes. Over a year, those micro steps transformed not just Ken's body, but his self-image. You might be thinking, but I don't have time to change slowly. I need results now. That urgency is understandable, but it's also the same urgency that has sabotaged you again and again. Ask yourself honestly, has chasing fast, dramatic change given you a stable, peaceful life? Or has it given you cycles of extreme commitment followed by extreme collapse? Which is really slower, 9 years of yo-yo habits? Or 3 years of steady, gentle Kaizen that actually sticks? In Japanese culture, you can see Kaizen everywhere once you look. The person who spends years perfecting the way they pour tea, the craftsman who polishes the same skill for decades, the gardener who trims a bonsai tree millimeter by millimeter, shaping beauty not with violence, but with patience. None of these people wake up one day suddenly perfect. They simply decided that today they will be 1 millimeter better than yesterday. That's it. There is another proverb. Fast is slow, but without breaks. Slow is fast. When you go fast by forcing dramatic change, you need breaks, long, painful ones, filled with guilt and burnout. When you go slow with Kaizen, you move in such small steps that you rarely need to stop. You might look slower today, but in a year, in 5 years, you will realize that your slow was actually the fastest path that didn't destroy you. Let's bring this into your daily life. Imagine you want to reduce your phone addiction. Instead of saying, I'll stop using my phone after 9 p.m. forever, try this. For 1 week, set an alarm for 10 minutes earlier than your usual doom scrolling end time. If you normally put your phone down at 1 a.m., aim for 12:50. That's it. Train your brain to accept this new limit. Once it feels easy, pull it back another 10 minutes. Step by step, you reclaim your nights. Or maybe your bad habit is emotional. Snapping at people you love, getting lost in anger, drowning in negative self-talk. You can't erase these overnight, but you can practice Kaizen here too. For example, you could decide, once a day when I feel irritation rising, I will take 1 deep breath before I respond. 1 breath, not 10, not a full meditation, just 1 breath. That tiny pause can start to pry open a space between your feelings and your actions. If your struggle is procrastination, don't start with, I'll study 5 hours a day. Start with, I will work for 2 minutes on the task I'm avoiding. Literally set a timer for 2 minutes. You might laugh at yourself. But here's something strange. Once you've started, your brain often says, well, we're here already. Let's keep going. Even if you stop after 2 minutes, You've built the identity of someone who starts instead of someone who only plans. A powerful Kaizen trick is to attach your tiny new action to something you already do every day. In Japan, you might see this in the way people bow slightly when they greet, automatically, as part of the rhythm of life. So if you want to drink more water, you might decide every time I brush my teeth, I take 3 sips of water. If you want to reduce sugar, you might say, every time I think of ordering dessert, I wait 60 seconds before deciding. Little links, tiny chains. Track your tiny changes, not to obsess, but to celebrate. In many Japanese companies, small improvements are recorded and praised. It's not about ego. It's about telling the brain, this matters. You could draw a tiny box on a calendar each day you complete your micro habit. 1 minute of reading, 1 push-up, 1 minute less of scrolling. At first, those boxes look insignificant. A month later, that chain of tiny wins will feel too satisfying to break. Of course, there will be days you fall. You'll oversleep. You'll binge. You'll snap at someone you love. You'll scroll until your thumb aches. The old you might say, see, I ruined everything. Might as well give up. But the Kaizen you says, I fell once. Tomorrow, I stand up 1 more time. Remember, fall 7 times, stand up 8, doesn't ask you to stand up dramatically. It just asks you to stand. That is enough. Here's a question I want you to carry with you. What is one thing I can do today that is so small it feels almost silly, yet still moves me in the right direction? Write it down. Don't just think it. Let your hand trace it into reality. Maybe it's turn off my phone 5 minutes earlier. Maybe it's walk to the end of the street. Maybe it's write 1 sentence, then quietly, calmly do it. If your inner critic mocks you, this is nothing. This won't change anything. Remember this. A 1-degree change in direction feels like nothing at the start, but after enough distance, you're in a completely different place. Planes don't need to turn 90 degrees to reach a new city. They just need a small correction held for a long time. Your life is the same. You were not born broken. Your brain simply learned to survive using certain habits, scrolling, avoiding, numbing, exploding. Kaizen is your chance to retrain it without hating it, without forcing it to run when it can barely walk, without screaming at it for not being perfect. As another saying goes, be not afraid of growing slowly. Be afraid only of standing still. One last story. In a small Japanese town, there was a man who repaired watches. His shop was tiny, filled with quiet ticking. A traveler once asked him, how can you work in such detail every day without going crazy? The watchmaker smiled and said, I don't fix watches, I fix seconds. 1 little second at a time. But if you fix enough seconds, you fix a lifetime. Your bad habits are not monsters to slay in one night. They are patterns of seconds, minutes, tiny choices, repeated until they hardened into chains. If you forge them 1 small action at a time, you can also melt them 1 small action at a time. Japan's Kaizen strategy is not glamorous. It won't get millions of likes, but it will quietly give you something much more valuable, a life that feels lighter day by day. So here is your invitation right now, before this moment slips into the endless scroll of your day. Close your eyes for a brief second and ask yourself, what is my 1 Kaizen step today? Not tomorrow, today. Make it so small that you almost feel embarrassed to say it out loud. Then honor it as if it were sacred, because for your future self it is. Years from now, you might look back on this day and smile. Not because you transformed everything in 1 dramatic burst, but because you began to move quietly, ruthlessly, in a better direction, 1 minute, 1 breath, 1 choice at a time. You don't have to crush your bad habits with force. You can dissolve them with patience. That is the quiet power Japan has been using for decades. And starting today, it can be yours too.